The sun was already bleeding orange across the West Texas sky when I heard the first crunch of gravel under tires that didn't belong on my ranch. I was out back, splitting mesquite for the smoker, the axe still ringing in my hands, when my wife Lauren stepped onto the porch holding our youngest Riley on her hip. Our two older boys, Jackson and Colt, were tossing a football in the side yard, pretending they weren't listening. "Oh, Gage," Lauren called, voice low but tight. "We've got company." 3 vehicles rolled up the long Caliche Drive like a black Escalade with HOA plates, a white F-150 flying one of those little green and gold neighborhood flags, and a Travis County Sheriff's Cruiser bringing up the rear like it was part of the parade. "Sir." I set the axe head down in the chopping block and wiped sweat off my forehead with the back of my shirt. I already knew who it was before the doors even opened. Victor Maldonado, president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, self-appointed king of every blade of grass within 5 miles, and a man who had been sending me certified letters for 18 months because my 200-acre ranch sat just outside his precious gated community, but still affected property or values. He'd measured my grass with a ruler once. Swear to God. Victor stepped out of the Escalade in pressed khakis and a navy blazer like he was about to close on a yacht. 2 other board members flanked him, Tina Whitmore, bleached blonde, botox, permanent scowl, and Dale Rourke, 6'4", former high school linebacker gone to seed, the muscle when letters didn't work. The deputy, a kid who couldn't have been more than 24, hung back by his cruiser looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I walked around the side of the house slow, boots crunching, thumbs hooked in my belt. Lauren stayed on the porch, Riley clinging to her neck now. The boys had gone still, football forgotten in the dust. "Evening, Victor," I said, stopping 10 feet from the bottom step. "Little far from your kingdom, aren't you?" Victor smiled the way a coyote smiles at a limping calf. "Mr. Callahan, we tried the polite route. 18 months of violations. You've left us no choice but to enforce the covenants personally. There are no covenants on my land, Victor. My deed goes back to an original Republic land grant. Your junk affects our residents' enjoyment and home values." I glanced past him. My junk was a 1952 Ford pickup I was restoring, 2 hay bales, and a burn barrel. Hardly the apocalypse. Tina stepped forward, phone already recording. "We're well within our rights to document ongoing violations." Dale just cracked his knuckles. That's when Lauren spoke up, voice like a 243 cracking. "You're on private property. Leave." Lecter turned that oily smile on her. "Mom, with all due respect, this stops today. Either Mr. Callahan complies or we escalate." "Escalates how?" I asked. He nodded toward the deputy. "A Deputy Gonzalez is here to keep the peace while we remove the offending materials." I looked at the kid. "Son, you got a warrant?" He shifted, eyes on his boots. "Ah, no, sir. Just here for presence. Presence. Pride." Victor took a step closer. "A last chance, Gage. Sign the compliance agreement, pay the accrued fines, 38,000 and change, or we start towing and burning today." Lauren laughed, short and sharp. "Over my dead body." Victor's eyes flicked to her, then to Riley, then to the boys. Something cold slid across his face. "Careful, Mrs. Callahan. Wouldn't want Child Protective Services to get the wrong idea about the environment these children are being raised in. Trash. Animals. Guns everywhere." I felt every drop of blood in my body turn to molten iron. Jackson, 14 going on 30, stepped off the porch. "You just threatened my mom and little sister." Victor ignored him, eyes locked on me. "I'm giving you 1 hour. After that, we do this the hard way." I smiled for the first time all day. "Victor, you just made the biggest mistake of your life." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." I looked at Dale. "You too, big man. You're on my dirt now. My rules." Dale took a half step forward, but Victor raised a hand. 1 hour, Gage. Be smart. They turned and walked back to their vehicles. The deputy looked almost relieved. Engine started. Dust clouds rose, and they rolled back down my driveway like an invading army that just realized it forgot the ammunition. Lauren's hand found mine. "They're coming back with more people." "Yep." "Oh, what are we going to do?" I kissed her forehead, then Riley's curls. "You're going to remind them whose ranch this is." The next 55 minutes were calm, almost peaceful. I sent the boys to the barn with instructions short, serious, no room for argument. Jackson took the .308 and the high ridge behind the house. Colt grabbed the R and the front hayloft. Lauren loaded the 12-gauge pump and took Riley into the storm cellar with the baby monitor and a thermos of coffee. I kissed them both again, longer this time. Then I walked out to the front gate alone, carrying only a coiled lariat and a cold sweet tea. They came back at the 61-minute mark with twice the numbers. 2 flatbed tow trucks, another sheriff's cruiser, different deputy older, a Travis County Code Enforcement Suburban, and 6 extra volunteers from the HOA, all wearing matching neon safety vests. Like this was a community cleanup instead of trespassing with intent to steal. Victor stepped out again, bullhorn in hand this time. A Gage Callahan, this is your final notice. Open the gate and stand aside. I repeat, stand aside or be removed by force. I took a long sip of tea, set the glass on a fence post, and leaned against the cattle guard. Victor, I called, voice carrying easy across the hot air. You're trespassing. You've been warned. Turn around and leave. He raised the bullhorn. A deputy, place him under arrest for obstruction. The older deputy side stepped forward, hand on cuffs. Hey, sir, I'm gonna need you to... He never finished. From the ridge, Jackson's voice cracked across the sky, calm as Sunday dinner. Y'all are in my scope. I'm 14 years old and I've been shooting prairie dogs since I was 8. Move another inch and we find out how good I am at 200-yard headshots. Colt chimed in from the loft, younger but twice as mean. I got the driver of the first tow truck. One squeeze and he's wearing his steering wheel for a necklace. The volunteers froze. A couple actually took steps backward. Victor went red. You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare with children on the property. I smiled again. My children are safer than yours right now, Victor. Because mine are behind cover with rifles, and yours are probably eating organic gluten-free snacks in your McMansion. Dale started forward, fists bold. I'll drag him off that gate myself. I uncoiled the lariat. Dale, I used to rope calves that outweigh you. You sure? He hesitated. That's when the sound of diesel engines growled from the south pasture. 4 pickups flying American flags and Gadsden flags, and one with a giant longhorn skull on the hood came roaring across my land. My neighbors. Men I'd pulled out of ditches, branded calves with, stood shoulder to shoulder with when the creek flooded 2 years back. 20 of them, maybe more, all carrying long guns, climbing out slow and spreading into a loose skirmish line behind me. Old man Gutierrez, 78 years old and meaner than a sack of rattlesnakes, racked a round into his 1886 Winchester. Victor, you peckerwood, you're on Callahan land, fool. We settle this like Texans or we settle it like men. Your choice. Victor's bullhorn faltered. The deputies looked at each other. Tow truck drivers suddenly discovered urgent phone calls. I stepped forward, boots loud on the cattle guard. Here's how this is gonna go, I said, voice steady. We're gonna turn your little caravan around. You're gonna drive back to your cul-de-sac. And you're never gonna set foot on my property again. Not you, not your board, not your rented deputies, not your lone Nazi army. Because next time we won't talk first. I let that hang in the air like gunpowder smoke. Or, I continued, you can try to force your way in. And every man you see here plus a few you don't will make sure you regret it for the rest of your natural life. And Victor? That life might not be real long. Alpha. Silence. Even the cicadas shut up. Victor looked at the rifles, at my neighbors, at his suddenly pale enforcement team. He looked at me. I saw it happen the exact moment his ego cracked. He lowered the bullhorn. This isn't over, he spat. I nodded slow. Yes, Victor, it is. They left. Engines coughed, dust rose again, and the armada retreated down my driveway like a kicked anthill. I didn't move until the last taillight disappeared. Only then did I let out the breath I'd been holding for an hour. Lauren came out of the cellar carrying Riley, tears in her eyes but chin high. The boys ran down from their posts grinning like it was Christmas. My neighbor slapped my back, called me crazy, promised cold beer later. But I wasn't done, because I knew men like Victor Maldonado. They don't lose, they regroup. They waited 3 weeks, 3 weeks of silence. No certified letters, no drive-bys, no passive-aggressive next-door posts. Victor Maldonado went radio silent. And in Texas, that only means one thing. The snake went back in the hole to grow a new rattle. I didn't relax. I prepared. I installed 8 Reolink cameras with 180-day cloud backup. motion-activated floodlights bright enough to land a 747, and a new steel gate with a hydraulic closer that could stop a freight train. I filed the survey pins again, painted them blaze orange so nobody could accidentally miss them. I paid the back taxes on the old mineral rights just in case they tried to come at me sideways through the county, and every night I walked the fence line with the dogs, a 1911 on my hip and a thermos of coffee, listening to the coyotes argue. Lauren asked me once, quiet in bed, "You think they're really done?" I kissed her temple. "No, baby, men like Victor don't get beaten, they get even." She didn't sleep much after that. The ambush came on a Thursday in late October, the kind of cold front that drops the temperature 30 degrees in an hour and makes the mesquite rattle like bones. I was in the barn welding a cracked hay ring when my phone buzzed camera alert, gate sensor. I pulled it. 2 unmarked box trucks and a black Suburban, no plates visible, rolling slow up the county road with their lights off. 9:17 p.m. I hit the group text I'd pre-made weeks earlier, read, "Everybody now." Then I killed the barn lights and stepped into the dark. They cut the chain on the pedestrian gate beside the cattle guard, quiet, wearing black balaclavas. 6 men I didn't recognize, plus Dale Ruhr bringing up the rear in a hoodie instead of his usual Under Armour. They carried bolt cutters, gasoline cans, and what looked like commercial fireworks mortars. Arson. On a ranch with 400 tons of hay and a family asleep in the house. I felt something ancient and ugly uncurl in my chest. I let them get 200 yards inside the fence line before I flipped the master switch on the new floodlights. 20,000 lumens turned night into noon. 6 masked heads snapped towards the blinding white. They froze like whitetail in a spotlight. From the darkness behind them, 20 rifles and shotguns racked in perfect unison. My neighbors stepped out of the brush like ghosts. Gutierrez, the Harper brothers, old Mrs. Delgado with her late husband's Ithaca, 37, even Pastor Mike from First Baptist holding a Mini 14, like he was born to it. I walked forward slow, Mossberg 590 in my hands, safety off. "Evening, boys," I said. "Y'all lost?" Dale tried to run. Gutierrez close, lined him with a Winchester like a fence post. Dale hit the dirt gasping. One of the masked men reached inside his jacket, Jackson's. 308 cracked once from the ridge. The round kicked dirt between the man's boots close enough to pepper his jeans. The next one's through the pump station, Jackson called, voice steady. "I'm done warning." They dropped everything. Cans, cutters, masks, hands went up. That's when Victor stepped out of the Suburban still parked on the county road, hands in the air, trying to look reasonable. "A Gage," he called. "Let's everybody calm down. This is just a welfare check. We heard reports of a fire." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Victor, you sorry son of a bitch. You hired felons to burn my family's barn and you're talking about welfare checks?" He opened his mouth, closed it. Deputy Gonzalez, the young one from the first visit, pulled up then, lights rolling but no siren. He took one look at 6 masked men on their knees surrounded by 20 armed landowners and reached for his radio. "Stand down," I told him. Calm, calm. "This is private property and we've got them dead to rights on video. You want to cuff them or should we?" He chose wisely. The fallout was biblical. Who's biblical? The 6 contractors were ex-cons from San Antonio with rap sheets longer than my arm. They rolled on Victor in exchange for reduced charges. Turns out the Willow Creek Estates HOA had a secret enforcement fund that paid cash for dirty work. Bank records, texts, Venmo receipts, everything. The Travis County dust smelled blood in the water. Victor was arrested at his own neighborhood, cameras rolling, while Tina Whitmore screamed about police brutality from behind her Ring doorbell. Dale got felony aggravated assault for the clothesline. Gutierrez pressed charges and smiled doing it. The entire board resigned within 48 hours. But I wasn't finished. I sued. Not just Victor, the HOA as an entity, every board member personally, the management company, even the title company that sold lots claiming a protective covenants over my ranch. We filed in state court, federal court, and threw in a RICO claim for good measure, because why not swing for the fences when the bat's already in your hands? Discovery was delicious. We found emails where Victor bragged he'd break that redneck cowboy if it's the last thing I do. We found forged signatures, kickbacks, threats to other homeowners. We found that enforcement fund that had paid for Dale's lifted truck and Tina's last Botox party. The HOA insurance carrier called me personally and begged to settle. I told them I'd see them in court. So, jury selection took 11 minutes. The foreman was a retired Marine from Burnett County who'd lost his own land dispute years earlier. They came back in 2 hours with $4. $7 million in damages and another $8 million in punitive because the judge let us show the jury the arson video on a 110-inch screen. Victor lost his house. Tina's husband divorced her the day the judgment dropped. Dale is still in county waiting on his third felony trial, and Willow Creek Estates. The HOA dissolved itself 6 months later. Covenants voided, gates taken down, neighborhood flags burned in a bonfire. The new owners through the weekend escrow closed on Victor's foreclosed McMansion. I bought it, cash, knocked the whole thing down and seeded it to native grass for the Longhorns. 2 years later, it's a cool November evening, same kind of front coming in. Lauren and I are on the porch swing. Riley's asleep against her chest. The boys are out by the fire pit with their friends, roasting marshmallows and lying about how big the fish was. A black Suburban rolls slow up the driveway, this time with lights on and a Travis County seal on the door. Deputy Gonzalez, older now, Sergeant Stripes, steps out holding a thick envelope. "A Mr. Callahan," he says, tipping his hat to Lauren. "Ida asked me to deliver this personally." I open it. Deliver this personally. Inside is the final order dissolving every claim Willow Creek Estates ever pretended to have on my land, signed by the judge, stamped in red, permanent injunction. Underneath is a second document. The deed to the 10 acres Victor once bragged was the crown jewel of the subdivision. Bought at sheriff's auction for pennies on the dollar. Gonzalez smiles for the first time I've ever seen. "I thought you might want to burn that one yourself." I hand it to Jackson. "Usun, go throw it in the pit." He grins the same grin he had the night he held the ridge and jogs off. Lauren leans her head on my shoulder. "You happy?" she asks. I look out over the ranch, my ranch, 210 acres now, no gates, no covenants, no kings except the one who earned it the hard way. I kiss the top of her head. Getting there, darling, getting there, darling, getting there. And somewhere in whatever sad apartment Victor Maldonado calls home these days, I hope he still wakes up at night hearing gravel crunch under tires that will never ever be his again. Because he threatened my wife and kids on my ranch, biggest mistake of his life,